Hi, this is Billie Jean King.
This is Marion Bartoli.
This is Bianca Andreescu.
I'm Mats Wilander.
This is Mary Carrillo.
This is Pam Schreiber.
This is Yannick Noah, and you're listening to the Tennis Podcast.
Well, hello and welcome to the Tennis Podcast on day 8 of Roland Garros. It is 8:30 p.m. and it is absolute chaos outside Court Philippe Chatrier because the day session has finished late. So we have the 15,000 day session fans that were on court for an incredible day of tennis on Chatrier pouring out of the place, and the night session crowd, the 15,000 people that are going to be watching Lorenzo Musetti against Holger Rune fairly shortly, they are pouring in to Court Philippe Chatrier, and in the pinch points around the place where those two crowds meet, it is well, it's absolute chaos, quite frankly. We're in our usual spot. Over to our right, or my right, just casually sitting there like she's anybody else in the world, is four-time French Open champion Justine Henin.
Yeah, and I mean, so far, in the time that I've been sitting here, she hasn't been interrupted or bothered, which must be quite nice, I would have thought, given how difficult it is sometimes for players to get around the place. She seems to be having a lovely time.
Yeah, one selfie I saw, which is one fewer than I took today.
It really supports my theory that it's not actually facial recognition that gets celebrities recognised. It's sort of how they carry themselves as celebrities, you know?
Yeah, I must admit, I've definitely, when I've been in tennis kit in the past, in the long lost past, sort of thought, I wonder if I carried myself enough as a tennis player, could I pull it off? I can tell you that I couldn't.
I once worked with a cameraman who just had long hair and was an absolute creep and just used to style himself like Stefanos Tsitsipas and just tell people, yeah, people keep mistaking me for Stefanos Tsitsipas. And we're like, they're absolutely not doing that, mate. Anyway, it is fitting that we're in the presence of a four-time Roland Garros champion, because we're going to start off today's show by talking about a four-time Roland Garros champion. Iga Swiatek beat Elena Rybakina today 1-6, 6-3, 7-5 in 2 hours and 30 minutes in not even the best match on Chatrier that we saw today, but it was a barnstormer, David.
Yeah, it really was, and I feel as though we've seen both iterations of Iga Swiatek that we've seen in the past, say, 12 months in that match, because the first set, she was the player that can get dominated, and we've seen dominated several times on clay this clay court season. I'm thinking of Madison Keys for a set. I'm thinking of the way Coco Gauff dismissed her in 2 straight sets. Okay, Jelena Ostapenko had to go 3, but she always beats her, doesn't she? 6 out of 6 for her. And today she was facing an Elena Rybakina who was almost doing a Jelena Ostapenko impersonation in terms of her game style. She was really going for broke on her ground strokes. She's obviously got the bigger serve as well. And when she took that first set, I mean, what was it, 5-love before Swiatek got a game?
In under 15 minutes.
Really? I didn't realise it was quite that quick. But that tells you everything, doesn't it? And it could so easily have become another Coco Gauff match from a few weeks ago. And Swiatek just did not allow it. I mean, obviously, some of that is Rybakina losing away in the second set, but even so, I have such respect for the way Swiatek didn't panic, just dug in and really went into the trenches and said, okay, I'm going to move my feet, I'm going to go after every ball, I'm going to find a way, and she did.
Yeah, this was the match during the course of which I decided Iga Swiatek is probably winning the French Open, and I wonder if she feels the same. She said in press after that match, and I think this is a big admission given how defensive she's been up to this point about her recent form. She said, I think I needed that win. I think I needed that kind of a win to feel these feelings that I'm able to win under pressure, even if it's not going the right way, to still turn the match around. It's great confirmation for me. I wanted to have a match like that.
And in some ways it was reminiscent of the Naomi Osaka match last year, which obviously came earlier in the tournament and was more shocking at the time because Iga Swiatek had been so dominant through the clay court season, and yet suddenly she was having the racket taken out of her hand by Naomi Osaka, hitting huge ball and just being really, really dangerous opponent, and she had to save a match point that day. And then, you know, she actually won the rest of her matches at this tournament relatively comfortably for the rest of the tournament, but she had to pass that test, and she had to pass this test today. I was so impressed with Swiatek through 6-1 2 love, because Rybakina went up a break at the start of that second set as well. I thought she was heading out. I really did. I didn't think this was going to turn around. Rybakina was looking awesome, but the difference in demeanour that Swiatek had compared to some of those losses that David's referenced earlier in this clay court season was stark. She wasn't getting really, really stressed. She wasn't getting down on herself. She just absolutely dug into that match and made some key changes as well. One that I did pick up on in the match, and then to hear her talk about it in the press, really, really stressed that it was an important choice that she made here, which was to give herself more time, step back in the court, particularly on return, but also I felt during the rallies a little bit as well, so she wasn't as rushed. And it was fascinating to hear her express it in the press conference in terms of that it was win for sets idea, and something that he's been wanting her to do for a little while, but she hasn't been implementing. And I think it goes to show how slightly stuck in her ways she's got because of the amount of success she had playing the previous way under her old coach in an extremely aggressive fashion. But that has over time stopped working for her sometimes, and she has been a little bit reluctant to adjust it, but she did today, and it seemed to make all the difference. She just had a lot more time on the ball suddenly. And through the latter half of the second set, and in particular in the third set, I thought she was awesome. She found her forehand again. She hit some absolutely wonderful forehands down the stretch. And yeah, she just stayed very, very calm in a lot of moments that could have got to her. Going down 6-1 2 love, being up a break in the third and having it pegged back, thinking she's got the crucial break in the third and having the umpire overrule a Rybakina double fault that she thought was going to give her the break. Gets overruled, Rybakina wins the point, wins the game. I thought, gosh, Iga Swiatek from earlier in this clay court season might not have won the match from there, but she stayed so calm, did it absolutely brilliantly, and it was an awesome performance and such a big celebration at the end of it as well, which I think really told you just how important this one was for her.
I felt like that quote in press about that tactical adjustment was quite a big moment for win for sets and their relationship, because we've all felt like its days are numbered without knowing how big that number is. It's felt like, well, unless she wins the French Open, winning the French Open is par, unless she wins it, he's probably going. Like with a football manager, you know, like they're going to go. It's just a question of when. And the opposition team is singing "Sacked in the Morning," you know. And I was thinking, you know, when we went to take our seats on Chateau for this, Swiatek was already 5 love down because that had happened so quickly. And I think I said to you, Matt, like, how quickly can she sack Iga? How quickly can she sack win for set if she loses this match? So for her to specifically reference him and the coaching and her reluctance up until this point to take on board that coaching and the difference that it made, the sort of indicative humility in that comment, I think is actually quite a watershed moment for that partnership, where we've seen moments of significant stress in it, haven't we? Both sort of on the court, caught by official cameras, and there have been, you know, social media posts of people capturing behind the scenes moments of strain between them. I took that as significant.
Yeah, I would agree, and I think it maybe shows one of the challenges for a coach in that if they have a clear picture, if a player isn't listening to them, they're getting the criticism a lot of the time. I mean, it's impossible not to think back a year and remember how dominant Swiatek was and see her struggle on clay the way she has in recent months and not put it down to win for set. You know, you just end up doing that because that's the change in the team, and it may be not his fault at all. You know, it may be just she's struggling. She's not necessarily implementing what he thinks because she's stubborn. That also happens. But maybe this is the moment. And look, he is a smart coach. Of that I have no doubt. And that is a very smart tactical change. And actually, if you think back in the media day press conference she did here, she was also intimating how stubborn she'd been with her tactics and the way she'd been going about things in Rome when she lost 1-1. And the time between Rome and now that has picked her back up was her going back to the drawing board a bit and saying, I've got to sort a couple of things out. And I didn't know exactly what they were, but there were clearly a couple of technical things that she was just stuck in the mud, almost literally in Rome, where she'd serve and just be just stranded. And she found a way out of trouble today. I like problem solved. And I think that is very encouraging for her, because not everybody's going to hit a ball like Elena Rybakina hits a ball either.
And I can imagine it's very, very difficult to know where the line is between stubbornness and trusting your instincts.
Oh, it's kind of everything, I think, for a great champion, treading that line correctly. You have to be stubborn as a great champion. They all are. In its best sense, it's a quality that they all have. But when they're going through some tough times and some doubts, it can become a negative, I think. But yeah, I agree with you. I think it's a really, really big moment, that. And I did just want to call out some moments at the start of the second set here, which felt really, really pivotal in this match as well. Rybakina up a break, missed a volley, a high forehand volley at 2-1 that gave the break back. It was on break point for Swiatek. I haven't seen it again. I wonder whether it was at a more awkward height than it looked in the stadium, but it did look like a really, really poor miss from Rybakina. But then in the very next game, there was this extraordinary sequence where Swiatek was serving at 2-all and kept getting game point and kept double faulting. She did it 3 times in a row.
And she said in press, I don't think I've ever done that before.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever hit 3 in a game before.
It was extraordinary, and at that point, it felt so on the edge. It really did. That was still in the portion of the match where I thought Swiatek wasn't going to come back and win this. So for her to turn that around and get through that game and then come out of it by the end of the match playing the sort of tennis that's made us have the discussion we've just had, made us feel like, so I agree with you, Catherine, like she can win this tournament, like she probably is going to win this tournament, like her tennis is good enough. Like for that all to change in the course of a match, pretty extraordinary, and tells you just how good she was, I think, in the latter stages here. It was awesome to see.
Rybakina did say she felt like she tired as the match went on, and that particularly affected her serve and the way she was able to push up on her serve, and the stats do bear that out. Her first serve percentage dipped as the match went on, ending at 43% for the third set, while Swiatek's first serve percentage went in the other direction. And you know, there's rarely just one reason for a match to turn or to pan out the way it does, and I'm not pointing that out to take anything away from Iga Swiatek. In fact, you know, the fact that she's able to improve over the course of a grueling, tense match, I mean, that's part of the sport, isn't it? Staying the course and lasting the distance and feeling physically strong enough to do so. And Rybakina did start to look frail in the end, didn't she?
Yeah, and I actually think the victory was even more significant because she thought she'd probably already got it with that when that overall came, and Rybakina served her way out of trouble after it went in her favour, and you know, to still regather yourself and win, It's blooming good going, that. But yeah, maybe this is work in progress for Rybakina. They're kind of in a similar spot in a way. Their best tennis has not been in the last however many months.
Yeah, there was that stat I did in the newsletter a couple of weeks ago that at the time of the WTA top 25, Swiatek and Rybakina, the only two not to have reached the final since last year's Roland Garros, which is extraordinary. But yeah, I think it goes to show that there has been a similarity, a sort of parallel between them in terms of decline in the last year or so. But yeah, extraordinary. Something I just thought on win for set, by the way, he was in the Osaka box last year, wasn't he, for that match? Like, is he he's the secret for these Swiatek classics at Roland Garros that we've got the last couple of years. 25th
win in a row for Iga Swiatek at Roland Garros. She's 4 away from the record, which belongs, of course, to Chris Evert with 29. And in the next round, trying to get her 26th win in a row here, she will take on Elina Svitolina, who won the match of the day against Jasmine Paolini 4-6, 7-6, 6-1 in 2 hours and 24 minutes, saving 3 match points in the second set. It became one-sided in the third set. We'll talk about that in a bit. I guess we'll take it kind of separately from the rest of the match, because up until that third set, this was about as high level consistently as a tennis match can be, really. Like, I know the stats say there were unforced errors, but it didn't feel like there were any true unforced errors really in that match to me. And I generally have issues with how unforced error stats are compiled. I think they're a bit trigger happy on the unforced side of things.
Yeah.
But I mean, this was just utter quality.
Yeah, we had to attend a sort of meeting in the first few games of the match, but we had the match on a laptop, and every time I looked at the laptop, one of them was hitting a winner. And I think they'd got up to sort of midway through this, or last stages of the second set, they'd got 60 winners between them, well in excess of the number of unforced errors, even with that trigger-happy finger that they seem to apply to these matches. These were two players playing well at the same time. And there haven't been that many matches this fortnight where I've thought that. I think it's rare that you get that anyway, because if you play well, usually it affects your opponent negatively. That just wasn't happening. They were just duking it out, hitting the ball so clean from the baseline, winner after winner. And they're wonderful retrievers. This is the other thing. They're both great defenders. So to hit winners against one another is bloody hard to do. And I don't quite know how to sum it up from a Jasmine Paolini perspective, because she had 3 match points. You know, if you have that, you should win. And yet the aggressor felt like Svitolina. She felt like she was the one going for broke in that way that she's applied to her game in recent years, where she used to be this counterpuncher and this scurrier, and suddenly now she's this player who's trying to take your head off.
There was one match point save in particular, wasn't there, Matt, that really summed up, encapsulated the Elina Svitolina rebrand, the one she took control of a point and finished off up at the net.
Yeah, that was the third one, wasn't it, in the tie-break, because, well, Paolini led 6-4, 4-1. She served for it at 6-4, 5-3. She had the first 2 match points on Svitolina's serve at 6-4, 5-4. And then she had another match point, this time on her own serve, in the tie-break at 6-5 in that tie-break. And that was the one where Svitolina just took charge, found herself at the net and knocked off the volley. And I think at that stage, everyone watching was just desperate for another set, because this was just so good. Like, nothing against Jasmine Paolini. Tournaments, I think, are generally better when Jasmine Paolini's in the draw, but then they're also better when Elina Svitolina's in the draw. It was one of those. You just wanted this match to go on, because it was everything. And the way Svitolina turned it around was a little bit reminiscent of their match in Melbourne. You know, I said categorically on the pod 2 nights ago in an attempt not to underestimate Jasmine Paolini, it will not be like Melbourne. And then it was a bit. Like, it wasn't as extreme. You know, in Melbourne, Svitolina took over in the second set completely, and it was one-sided from there. Here we had a real tussle in that second set, and it could have been over. But Svitolina did take over in a similar way in the third set here, ran through it by 6-1, and she was awesome. I think Paolini faded. I think there was probably a hangover from that second set, not taking her chances. Maybe also some scar tissue from Melbourne and their match there. I think also maybe just, and this is pure speculation on my part, but it's been a lot for Jasmine Paolini, hasn't it, in the last month? You know, singles and doubles, Rome and Paris. Like, it's just a lot of tennis. There's a lot of attention. It's a lot.
The tank looked empty, didn't it? The omelette was closed.
The omelette was closed.
Set.
Exactly. Yeah. So I don't want to take that away from Svitolina, because she absolutely earned that third set by what she did in the second set. But she wasn't quite facing full force Paolini in that third set, but she absolutely was for the rest of the match, and she was toe to toe, and it was awesome. It was fantastic.
The way she produces her aggression, Elina Svitolina, is quite extraordinary, because it's so apparent to me in the way she produces these big, bold shots that is not who she is naturally. That is not in her DNA. It's like you can see her having to overwrite her DNA with every single shot. You know, you had the direct comparison of Elena Rybakina coming onto court afterwards and Iga Swiatek, and they produce their power and aggression differently, but it's very clear where it's coming from. You know, Rybakina's got this huge stature and wingspan and incredible timing, and Swiatek has this very muscled, armed forehand in particular, and the whiplash timing on the backhand. Elina Svitolina, in order to produce the kind of aggression which I think you have to have now at the top of women's tennis, the days of the Wozniackies, the pure counterpunchers, I think are gone. The way she has to produce that is to throw her whole body into every single shot. It just looks like the most extraordinary effort, physical effort, and effort of will. Like, it's absolutely incredible. And I in my tennis memory, David, I can't think of anybody that has remodeled their entire game and reprogrammed themselves like Elina Svitolina has. Your memory goes back further than mine and is generally better than mine anyway, so I very well could be doing a lot of players a disservice there, but I can't think of any.
We've been discussing it today, haven't we? You've been canvassing opinion and trying to find people who might have an example. And I know Matt came up with one from the men's game. My one was Mary Jo Fernandez from the early 90s, who I'd watched a lot, and I never thought of her as a threat to the biggest players. She was a very good player, and she got to 2 Grand Slam finals, the first of which was at the Australian Open, but I never thought in that run to the Australian Open that she's going to win the thing. And I would watch her at other events, and it was just a good, solid baseline game, decent forehand, etc. When she went through the draw at Roland Garros in 1993, she beat Gabriela Sabatini 10-8 in the third. She beat Arantxa Sanchez-Vicario 6-2, 6-2 in the semi-finals. 6-2, 6-2 against one of the great baseliners. And in short, she just socked her off the court with her forehand. I mean, it was like like a boxer putting cement in the glove and suddenly having way more power. Now, I'm not suggesting there was anything underhand here in Mary Jo Fernandez getting more power. She found power from somewhere, or she was able to hurt players. I don't know whether she changed her racket or what. I'd love to speak to her sometime if I ever got the chance about that, and whether I'm just imagining it. But I remember the before and after. And then she played the final against Steffi Graf and won the first set 6-4. And this is, peak Steffi Graf you're talking about, and she'd go forehand to forehand with her and be getting the better of it. She ended up losing the match in 3. But my recollection was just of a player who suddenly, whether it's the Svitolina overhaul of that type, or whether it's, I don't know, but that's the only thing I can think comparable. But if you'd have asked me, having covered Svitolina for 6 years as a commentator when BT Sport had the rights, I would never in a million years have imagined this to be possible. To me, she was the Caroline Wozniacki type counterpuncher. So to achieve this is quite extraordinary to me.
She was the elite version of your club pusher, wasn't she? I mean, she was incredible at it, but that's the style of player that she was. And now she's this fearless aggressor. It's unreal. Like, I know we've had people like remodel a shot. That happens a lot, and I'm sure people are screaming Roger Federer in the backhand 2017, but that is different. Like I so often think that shot selection is kind of the thing that's actually most difficult to learn and improve in the sport. There's something so fundamental about it that I don't know, just the total rewiring blows my mind, really.
Yeah, me too. It's extraordinary. And the one that I thought of was Andy Murray under Lendl, particularly when he started under Lendl in that 2012-2013 period. He had a couple of matches against Federer at the Olympics and at the Australian Open where he just took it to Federer in a way that he hadn't before. But I do think it's not quite the same, because the point that David makes about Svitolina is I never thought this was possible. Like, everyone was calling out for Andy Murray to do that. It felt like the obvious thing that he needed to do. And it was a transformation. He was punching that forehand. He was going after it. He was just bullying Federer, really, around the court. But everyone knew that he probably was capable of that. It was just unlocking that. Whereas I never thought this was even possible for Svitolina, for her to play like this. Not only has she unlocked it, she's come up with the idea and implemented it under extremely high pressure situations rather than like reverting back to what she knows best. And like, she had a ton of success playing the other way. Like, I know she didn't win a slam, but she hasn't won a slam playing this way either. You know, she had a ton of success before, winning 1,000 titles and WTA finals and getting up into the top 5 of the rankings. So for her to come back with this new approach, and I think even though her results this time haven't actually been like that in terms of titles and ranking, she would not be doing what she is now, playing that old game.
If she'd
style.
come back in the same way, she'd be outside the world's top 30.
Yeah, I have to think so. Whereas, you know, she's come back and she's pretty consistently reaching these latter stages of the Grand Slams and having big wins, and it's so impressive.
And look, I think Svitolina is an extreme example of kind of needing to change because her style of play did go out of date very quickly. But I do think there's an incredible kind of psychological example in there of players coming back, whatever it's from mental health breaks or maternity leave or falling out of love with the sport, whatever it is, players that are searching. We've got a lot of them out there at the moment. Naomi Osaka, Bianca Andreescu, Emma Raducanu to an extent. Like, rather than trying to refine what you were, be something new. Find something new to be. And, you know, Naomi Osaka's style of play has not gone out of date. The way, you know, the style of play that won her 4 major titles, if she could refine that form, it would still, I think, be a major winning style of play. So I recognise it's different, but I do think psychologically there is something so powerful in that, rather than trying to be who you once were. I think she's incredible, Elina Svitolina, absolutely incredible. And if I hadn't seen Iga Swiatek do what she did today, after the Svitolina match, I was thinking she'd have a chance against Swiatek. Not maybe a big chance, but a chance. And I feel slightly less that way after Swiatek's win today.
I understand why. I still think she does have a chance, and because I think that first set should give Svitolina some hope, quite honestly, because, let's not forget, Swiatek was a 6-1-2 love down. I realise against Rybakina, but if she hits big, maybe she can get her in that position and put some pressure on. So I wouldn't rule it out.
Mm. Yeah, look, Svitolina will show up and bring it. That's for sure. She'll ask Swiatek the questions and she'll have to have the answers. And I just back Swiatek to have the answers to questions after today in a way that I was unsure about before today. Folks, that is not where the fun ends on the women's side of things today, because while Swiatek and Rybakina were duking it out on Philippe Chatrier, over on Longlen, Zheng Qinwen was in a mighty tussle against Ludmila Samsonova. This one, the longest match of the three, 2 hours and 47 minutes. Zheng Qinwen winning 7-6, 1-6, 6-3, and falling to her back on the clay, David, like she had won the golden career slam.
Oh, I love it.
It was absolute scenes out there.
That was the one bit I didn't see because I watched virtually the whole match, and then I had to go to be called away for commentary, and on my way up the match ended, so I didn't get to see the end. That's so exciting. I mean, because it was some tussle. Samsonova played out of her mind. She hit so many winners and drop shot winners, and Zheng was under such pressure. I'm not surprised that she's ended up reacting like that, and I do love it.
I hadn't quite realised how big a problem Samsonova had been for Zheng Qinwen before this match. She came into this match, Samsonova, with a 3-2 head-to-head against Zheng Qinwen, and Zheng referenced that in her press conference afterwards. Like, I knew I had a task on my hands today. Like, I was prepared for what this match ended up being, and David was screening this from the press seats on Chatrier, and at one point he turned to me and he said, Ludmila Samsonova's turned into Carlos Alcaraz.
Suddenly she's just running side to side, hitting incredible ground strokes, and then finishing it with drop shots, and have I missed something here? I don't remember Samsonova doing this before.
It was wonderful seeing her celebrate the way she did in the moment of victory. It's her first quarter-final here at Roland Garros. I know it's sort of hard to think that way because she won that Olympic gold, but it's her first Roland Garros quarter-final, and she clearly wasn't taking it for granted that she would get there. But I do think that Olympic gold medal will mean she will always have a special affinity with this Grand Slam, a very special affinity with this Grand Slam. And it was so interesting seeing her look like a big kid, both in the moment of victory and in the press conference afterwards, because I am always so struck by and almost mesmerised by the presence and the poise of Zheng Qinwen. She's both intimidating and ethereal in her presence and in her stature on a tennis court. And it's very easy to forget that she's only 22. She does not look 22 when she's playing tennis. She seemed younger than 22 in the press conference. There was a touch of Mira Andreeva about it. She was almost sort of giggly and giddy and just totally in the moment and couldn't quite believe it, really. It was a really kind of special moment, and it was a real getting to know you moment with Zheng Qinwen. I realised I've not been in nearly enough of your press conferences, and I'm going to make a point of going to more from this point onwards. And it is Aryna Sabalenka next for Zheng, and I'll hand you over to our correspondent on that match, Sabalenka's 7-5, 6-3 victory over Amanda Anisimova over on Longlen. Matt watched every ball of this?
Yeah.
Of course.
And look, 7-5, 6-3 sounds pretty routine. And I'm not just saying this as Amanda Anisimova correspondent. This was tough. This was a really tough match and a good win, I think, for Aryna Sabalenka. And I am very excited about Sabalenka-Zheng now, because we get to test the theory of how much did Rome matter. And honestly, I take absolutely everything that you've just said there about Zheng. I'm feeling pretty confident in Sabalenka. I thought she was awesome today. I thought she was absolutely brilliant. This match, obviously we talked about the head-to-head that Anisimova has over Sabalenka. She leads the head-to-head. But the majority of those wins are against an older version of Aryna Sabalenka, the one before she became this force that she is now. And I think today we saw just how much better Sabalenka's become as a player since they started playing. One of the most standout matches that I've ever witnessed live was Anisimova destroying Sabalenka at the Australian Open in 2019, when Sabalenka went in as kind of everyone's dark horse pick for the title, really, and Anisimova as a teenager just blew her away. That was the match when I discovered the backhand. But the player that Sabalenka has become since then, the options that she now has in her game are extraordinary. Because she does have problems in the matchup against Anisimova. When Anisimova strikes the ball like she does, Sabalenka doesn't like it. She doesn't like being rushed by the sweet timing, the clean hitting of Anisimova. But whereas before she didn't have anything to counter that, she's now got lots of ways. Drop shots, slice, variety generally. And that package just ended up proving to be a little bit too much for Anisimova. The sequence of games that Anisimova played from 2-5 down in the first set to 5-all, 15-40, she had 2 break points, was a dream. It was just everything that I love about her game. Backhands, forehands, return winners, shots on the run, like it was just fantastic. But down those 2 break points, Sabalenka used another shot which has developed a lot, and that's her serve. She hit a kick serve that Anisimova couldn't control. She had an ace, and time and again in this match she served her way out of trouble. 11 aces in the match for Sabalenka, just generally came up with them, and then she took control of the match. But then we had this great moment of drama at the end when Sabalenka just couldn't convert her match points. Anisimova saved 7 of them, 6 in one game to hold, and Lenglen was up and it was with Anisimova, but Sabalenka stayed so strong and firm and managed to win it eventually on her 8th match point. And there was a nice, because I thought maybe there was a bit of tension between them during the match, but actually I think maybe Anisimova was just a bit annoyed generally and wasn't directing it at Sabalenka. There was a lovely embrace between them at the end. I think they know that they can kind of bring out the best in each other. And Sabalenka knows that's a big win. I thought she was really impressive in this one, because it was such a different test to the ones she's had so far this tournament. She hadn't been tested, and here she was, and she came through it. You know, we talked about, can you be winning too easily? I think she proved today that no, she's still so match tough and tight from all the winning she's done this year. When she needed it, it was there. And it was a great win. Pere Riba, Zheng Qinwen's coach, came out to Lenglen to watch the first set of this, so he's making his notes, doing his scouting report. And I don't want to write Zheng off, but I've just seen that matchup a lot, and it's hard to imagine when Sabalenka is full pelt and hungry. To me, it's hard to imagine that she's going to lose to Zheng, but maybe I'm underestimating her. But I'm now in that stage of the tournament where we're tantalisingly close to Swiatek Sabalenka at Roland Garros, and I want to see it. I really want to see it.
Swiatek Svitolina and Sabalenka Zheng Qinwen, we would have signed for that.
Oh yeah.
Oh, it's a fantastic lineup.
10 days ago, wouldn't we?
I have to say I don't feel any different. I still feel like Sabalenka is the favourite for this title, and I was impressed with Swiatek today, of course, but Sabalenka just looks undeniable in her body language. You know, she was put under so much pressure. I was watching that match too on the screen next to me, and thinking, God, you're having to take a lot here. And she's just a champion.
Well, the good news, folks, as much as I love Jasmine Paolini, and I'm sad she's out of the tournament and her smile is gone from the tournament, the risk of underestimating Jasmine Paolini is gone for the moment.
Yeah, every cloud.
And she's still in the doubles.
She's still in the doubles, and I'll never underestimate her there.
And she's playing Siegmund tomorrow.
Right. Okay, that's it for part one. We'll be back in part two to talk about Carlos Alcaraz and some more men. Welcome back to part two of the tennis podcast, where we turn our attention now to the men's event. And we have to start with Carlos Alcaraz, who finished on Chartres not that long ago, actually. Held up the night session. Lorenzo Musetti and Holger Rune are just getting going. We'll talk about that in part three, don't you worry. Alcaraz against Shelton, a fun time. 7-6, 6-3, 4-6, 6-4 for Alcaraz. Saved a set point in the first set tiebreak and several break points in the first game of the second. Took a little detour in the third set. It's the Alcaraz way. How much jeopardy did you feel, David, that there was in this match for Carlos Alcaraz?
Well, overall, not that much, but actually if you were to take it set at a time, he was in trouble in every one of them. He faced 3 set points in the first set, and he saved them all. I mean, credit to him for that. But, you know, Ben Shelton's never got really close to him before when they've played, and you just look at it and think, well, he's exciting, he's explosive, but Alcaraz is those things and more. But I do think that there were moments of jeopardy here. That he should have lost that first set, really. And then the second set, he had to fend off 5 break points in the first game of the second set, which he did. So he won that set. Then he loses the third set. So there was a lot of jeopardy, really. And I actually think that what Ben Shelton did really effectively, I think somebody's been in his ear there and told him how to approach this match in a way that might make it winnable, because you're not going to outplay Carlos Alcaraz for the whole match unless he has a terrible day. It reminded me of the big matches Andy Roddick played against Roger Federer when he nearly got him. You know, the Wimbledon final, the couple of US Open matches they had, where really the emphasis was on keep it close. Keep holding your serve. Don't go for broke all the time, because you're going to wear yourself out. But when you get that chance, that glimmer, that sort of scoreboard pressure, then turn on the heat. Go after the big forehand, go after the big serve. And he did it successfully to keep it close. Alcaraz was irritable today, you know, for certainly for quite a lot of the first 2 sets. He took a very, very heavy fall in the early stages, in the midway through the first set. He sort of was running to his right, and his toe hit the court before his foot planted, and he went straight over. He tumbled over, and it was a heavy fall. I don't think he was injured in a sort of got a muscular problem or a ligament damage or anything like that, but it really shook him up. I think it's, you know, sometimes when you fall over like that, it just knocks the stuffing out of you for a while, and that's what it felt like. He never looked happy out there, particularly. He was relieved. That was a relieved Carlos Alcaraz to get that win.
Yeah, I felt like 4 sets was about right for this match. Like, it didn't quite strike me as like losing an unnecessary set or having a huge dip and causing him to lose that set. Like, I thought Shelton brought it today. I really was impressed with him, considering that, you know, he hadn't really done all that much on the clay coming into Roland Garros this year. I mean, he lost heavily, didn't he, to Jean Mimouna just before the tournament. I didn't have high expectations of Shelton on the clay at Roland Garros this year really at all, but I thought he played really well and probably deserved a set. And yeah, there was a moment where Alcaraz hit a winner without his hand on the racket, which
it's a new one even for him.
And it's not allowed. You're not allowed to do that. You have to have your hand on the racket. So he actually conceded the point.
That was a nice moment.
It was a lovely moment, and I don't think Shelton was really clear what had happened either. It was kind of on Alcaraz to say it, and then the umpire announced it, and it was a miraculous volley that he hit, but he didn't have his hand on the racket at the time, so it didn't count. It was Shelton's point.
How much touch would you have to be able to actually let go of the racket, make contact with the ball, and still play a perfectly feathered drop volley?
That's it. It was a drop volley, wasn't it? It wasn't like he just hit it and it pinged off the string. No, he kind of got it as a drop volley. It was incredible. But Shelton at the end of that third set was just unleashing some huge shots and rattled Alcaraz a bit, and
all on the forehand though, weren't they?
Yeah, and his backhand is.
It keeps the rallies going.
And when he goes for it, he doesn't have the control on it. And
Alcaraz knew that, didn't he? So he was targeting.
It's a zone to go to against Shelton. But yeah, he can unleash on the forehand. And I thought it was a really fun match. I didn't sort of watch it as closely as I watched Paolini and Sabalenka and Swiatek, but whenever I saw it, fun stuff was happening. I think it was a absolutely sensational 3 matches in a row on Chapter there. Like the crowds on that day's session, God, they got their money's worth today. Like all of them were just so intriguing.
Tommy Paul next for Carlos Alcaraz. 3-3 for him against Alexei Popyrin today. I've thought Tommy Paul has been injured since round 1.
Yeah, well, he has. He said he got a stomach muscle tear. You know, that is I mean, I don't think it can't have been a serious one. It was enough to worry him, and enough to extend a match that he wasn't expecting to be extended on. Certainly we weren't. That he scraped through early on. Then he won the 5-set epic against Khachanov, which I would have really expected him to lose if he's not 100% fit. He's getting better, and I mean he's just absolutely rolled Alexei Popyrin today.
Will Alcaraz have to be better than he was today to beat Tommy Paul? Because it's a totally different matchup, totally different player, but there is somewhere to go against Tommy Paul as well. The forehand rather than the backhand, but there is an obvious weakness.
Yeah. It's a funny head-to-head, isn't it? Because Tommy Paul leads it 2-0 in Canada. And Alcaraz leads it 4-0 everywhere else. And they met here at the Olympics last year when it was a straight sets win for Alcaraz, albeit with a close second set. Needed a tie-break that day. I think the thing with Paul is that, particularly on a hard court, he can move with Alcaraz, and he can kind of live with him in the rallies. He's an incredible athlete. But I heard Andre Agassi actually on Tennis Channel, I think it was last week, analysing what makes Alcaraz different on clay and on grass, the natural surfaces. He said on those surfaces, when it's slippery, Alcaraz's movement doesn't diminish. It actually maybe gets better on those surfaces, where a lot of players find it easier to move on the hard courts where they've got firm footing. And Tommy Paul, I think, is one of those. He's good on clay, Tommy Paul, but I think the athleticism that he's able to bring to the matchup benefits him more on a hard court against Alcaraz. I think when you've got sliding involved and when you've got points that are being played at the full stretch, that's where Alcaraz is so brilliant. The strength that he's got and the ability to play defence and offence from kind of anywhere on the court. And I think that's an advantage for him on the clay against Tommy Paul. So will he have to be better than today? Maybe if he wants to really clinically beat him.
I think he could end up in 5 sets if he plays like he did today.
I still would back him to win.
Yeah.
Especially with his 5-set record being so good. But yeah, he probably does need to go up a level, and that's part of it in a draw, isn't it? Going through the gears and just bringing a little bit better each round. And yeah, Tommy Paul is a big test for him for sure.
Alcaraz plus puppies content dropped today.
Were you a bit disappointed by it? Did I read in the chat, or was it everything you hoped for?
Yeah, I mean, look, he's a dog.
You witnessed it live.
He's a dog person, and that came across. Yeah, I think I was slightly disappointed. Yeah.
I think I could tell that by the...
Yeah, it was clearly a meeting of minds between Carlos Alcaraz and Karim the puppy. Hannah's take on it was, I think the problem is that Alcaraz is genuinely too excited by the puppies to be able to form a coherent sentence in response to any questions, which is relatable.
wasn't as good as Alcaraz and John content.
No, nothing ever is.
John better than dogs.
Right, folks, that is it for part 2. We will be back in part 3 to, of course, look ahead to tomorrow's order of play, but also to talk about Francis Tiafoe, who's just beaten Daniel Altmaier, and he awaits the winner in the quarterfinals of the match just starting between Lorenzo Musetti and Holger Rune, which we are going to watch. Welcome back to part 3 of the Tennis Podcast, where it is now midnight. We're back at Tennis Podcast Towers. Lorenzo Musetti is undressing on the TV before our eyes after a sweaty 4-set match against Holger Rune. He's about to do an interview with Fabrice Santoro, le formidable Lorenzo Musetti, as the commentators have just called him. And as Matt just pointed out, we're here having the Lorenzo Musetti experience a full 3 hours earlier than we were this time last year. Very good of him, David.
It was, and a very good performance, I thought, against Holger Rune, who was dynamic in the second set, and he does have great power, but he also looked irritable and tired and fatigued. I mean, he's played several long matches already. Musetti, I know he had a little bit of a scenic route in the last round, but it was never out of his control. He looked fresh tonight. He looked imaginative. He just dissected Rune, really, throughout that match. And what was really impressive is the way he accelerated away from him. At one set all, I really thought we were going the distance in this match. And he just stamped on that idea.
I was considering a disco nap at a set all. I was sort of just assuming we were nailed on for another 2 a.m. But I underestimated. I found a new Italian to underestimate, apparently, Matt. He was darn good tonight, Lorenzo Musetti.
He was. He really was. He's now into his first quarterfinal here at Roland Garros, which, feels right, considering the clay court season he's had, and frankly, considering the fact that he's got his rankings where it is now. He's now able to make a run to the quarterfinals at Roland Garros without having to go through a Djokovic like he had in the third round last year, or an Alcaraz who's beaten him here before. He's only really lost to top players at Roland Garros in his career. And certainly on the clay, I wasn't exactly sure how this matchup would go, considering that Rune had got the better of him in their previous 2 meetings on the hard court and grass. But I think we saw the level that Musetti has compared to Rune on the clay right now. Like, as David said, the greater control over his game, the greater clarity of thought about what it is he's doing out there, an ability to construct points, whereas sometimes I don't really know how Rune's trying to win these points. Sometimes he seems to be really passive. Sometimes he just randomly goes and pulls the trigger on a shot that he's not quite in position for. Whereas with Musetti, it was just all under control, and he went off a bit in the second set. He got a bit too passive, I thought, but stepped it back up, started dominating again, and raced through sets 3 and 4 pretty comfortably. Yeah, very, very impressive performance and run here from Musetti.
After what we saw from Rune in Barcelona, beating Carlos Alcaraz for the title there, this Roland Garros has been a bit disappointing from him, hasn't it? It's not a fourth round loss to one of the clay court players of the year. It's not a disaster, but it's not a step forward at all.
No, it's not. We were just reminiscing about his previous defeats to Alexander Zverev last year in the 5th set, when I thought he was going to win. He was 2 sets to 1 up in that. The year before that, he lost to Casper Ruud. He's lost to him a couple of times. I just feel as though he's treading water in the Grand Slams, really. That performance in Barcelona was so destructive in terms of its power. I mean, the way he was going after the ball. But it strikes me that there he was fresh of mind. he hadn't got himself embroiled in these long matches. I mean, he has missed tournaments or had to withdraw from matches recently, and I wonder whether these things have kind of added up to this sort of performance tonight. But I just feel like he's got such a clean ball strike on both sides, and he has truly destructive power. He should be going after them a lot more often and just trying to end rallies a lot earlier, because he's got the ability to do it.
He can start to look very frazzled on a tennis court. He gets those bags under his eyes, and you start to think, oh, well, he looks like a teenager, doesn't he? I know he's got that boyish look, but I'm just such a fan of the way he hits the ball. I'd love to see some progress from him, but I do think it's good news, isn't it, to see Lorenzo Musetti through to the quarterfinals, where he will face Francis Tiafoe. 6-3, 6-4, 7-6 for him over Daniel Altmaier. What a sneaky little run through to the quarterfinals from Francis Tiafoe. No one saw this coming.
No, and he's playing really well. He looks confident, as you would expect when on a run like that. But watching him play the points, there's not... Sometimes I watch him and I think he's pulling the trigger too quickly on drop shots or short balls or angles. And he does have a lovely touch game. But I've noticed a lot of times I've watched him this week, he's been happy to just dig into a rally and kind of win it on merit and earn the win, and not just... I don't want to say bail out of the rally, but sometimes I think he's trying to end it a bit too quickly, and not just with power, but with these touch rallies. And players get used to that a little bit. They suddenly they're already taking a step forward. I mean, I realise that Altmaier is not the sort of level of player he's going to have to beat in order to kind of go all the way here. He's going to have to beat some of the big guys. But it's great to see him look pumped and up for it and excited. He looks so excited at the moment to be playing well. And there's a clarity of thought there.
Musetti Tiafoe, does Tiafoe have a chance, Matt?
I think you'd have to say he has a chance, considering he hasn't dropped a set yet, everything David's described there. But I think Musetti's class tells in that match on a clay court. I think he'll have too much game for him. But, Musetti will be trying to reach... they'll both be trying to reach first semi-finals here, won't they? Feels a bit like the pressure's on Musetti a little bit more in that match. I think he'll be expected to win. Maybe Tiafoe can take advantage if there's a little bit of tightness there. But I don't know, I'm just such a believer in everything I'm seeing from Musetti this clay court season that I think he passes that test, even if Tiafoe sort of throws some of his best at him. I think on this surface, Musetti's just a level above.
3-2 head-to-head in Tiafoe's favour.
Yeah, the one match they've played on clay was won by Musetti in 2023 on the clay there, and that was 6-3 in the third, so that was close. I mean, Musetti's made major strides, hasn't he, since then? But yeah, I mean, 3 of their 5 matches have gone the distance, and he's had a 7-6 in the third, has Musetti 4 years ago. Tiafoe's had a 2 tie breaks and then a 6-2 in a third as well. That was on grass in Stuttgart. So they've played on everything. But I do feel kind of that maybe Tiafoe's game might play into the hands of Musetti on clay.
That they've just that they're running some highlights of the Musetti Rune match on our screen at the moment. I think while they wait for Musetti to make his way to the cupboard, which
that is definitely about to happen. Yeah,
winning. Maybe that's why they can't have women in the night session, because it'd be inappropriate to invite them into the cupboard afterwards. There's a thought. No, they're running some highlights, and they just showed the drop shot smash that Musetti hit.
Oh.
And I'm just suddenly convinced he's going to win the French Open. How can anybody that can do that ever lose a tennis match?
Oh, it was wonderful.
Riddle me that.
Yeah, it was great. There was a lovely use generally of disguise from Musetti. Like, you don't, like, he can do that sort of thing, a a smash drop shot. He can hold the ball until the last minute when then suddenly decide to hit it to where his opponent is not standing. Something Federer was so good at, just holding the ground stroke and just flicking it the other way right at the last moment.
As if the ball isn't moving, as if it's a golf swing.
I simply
how is that
don't
possible?
understand how they do it. It's incredible.
He must adjust the swing in order to just contact it at a different time.
Yeah.
Extraordinary.
Yeah, so good. So good.
Okay, well, that will be in 2 days' time, which will be Wednesday. What is today?
Today was Sunday.
Today was Sunday.
But it's now Monday.
So it'll be a Tuesday match.
I definitely did need help there. Thank you, Matt. So what have we got to look forward to later today? Monday. Nailed it. Chatrier starts again at 11 a.m. With Ekaterina Alexandrova against Coco Gauff. Then it is Lois Boisson taking on Jessica Pegula, the last French player standing. Third on, Cameron Norrie facing Novak Djokovic. And finally, the night session match on Chatrier, Yannick Sinner against Andrei Rublev. Longlen starts with Andreeva against Kasatkina. Then Zverev, Griekspoor. Third on is Madison Keys and Hailey Baptiste. And finally, it's Alexander Bublik and Jack Draper. Would you like to know what our old friend, the Infosys excitement rating, has to say about these matches?
It was back today, wasn't it?
It's back. A mid-tournament random return that nobody asked for.
Apart from us when we're looking to fill content at the end of a long day, it is quite a fun thing to make fun of.
Okay,
so I'm a little bit glad it's back.
Right, one of these matches Infosys hasn't bothered with. That's Draper Bublik. Didn't bother giving that an excitement rating at all.
Wow.
Charming.
Two of these matches have a 100% excitement rating.
Right.
Which two do you think it is?
Baptiste against Keys.
I think they're reserving 100% for men.
I'm trying to...
One's a men's, one's a women's.
Oh, okay.
I'm not calling the tracker a sexist.
Sinner Rublev, night session.
100.
I mean, okay.
And then...
Boisson!
No, not even the Infosys excitement rating is that silly.
Goff Alexandrova.
Yeah.
God, I should... I feel conflicted. I'm pleased I got it right, but also worried that I have the same opinions as the excitement rating.
Would you like to know what excitement rating Infosys is giving Norrie against Djokovic? How excited are you for Norrie against Djokovic, David?
42.
Matt? Oh, Musetti's in the cupboard. It's a bit distracting.
42 out of 100?
Yes.
That's how percentages work, Matt.
Yeah.
It's not usually me who gets this stuff right, is it?
Sorry, I'm distracted. 39.
39. Well, you are wrong, folks, because Infosys definitively says this is a 93% rating. In at 92 is Zverev against Griekspoor. 94 is Andreeva and Kasatkina. We have two matches languishing in the 70s.
Do we have any idea what the criteria of
You're not going to like this,
on
Matt.
is?
Well, look, Pegula Boisson is a 71, and who am I to argue with that? Unfortunately, Madison Keys and Hailey Baptiste are on a 75.
Yeah, this is where we differ. That's the match I'm most excited for tomorrow.
Yeah, I've slagged it off, but I sort of love it. What a weird, chaotic feature of the Roland Garros website.
Does it always only come in at the end of the tournament?
Who knows?
No, I can't remember.
What a load of madness. Okay. Maybe they know something we don't. I'm sure it's based on very sophisticated data and algorithms and AI of some sort. Hello to Moses. Oh my God, Moses. Moses is our mascot for today. How am I supposed to read this and not be distracted by Moses's face? Moses is owned by Kelly, a 14-year-old standard schnauzer. Kelly says he's the best good boy and my best buddy. He's loved kayaking. Going to need some photos of that, please, Kelly. Hiking, jogging, and thousands of walks. Now we are more keen on naps in the sun and watching tennis together. I'm lucky to have such a good friend to share my interests with. Kelly, that could make me cry.
You're telling me that dog's gone in a kayak?
Yes, it's quite hard to get scale, isn't it, from the photo? But I can see how a schnauzer would fit in a kayak. They've got such personality, schnauzers. It's a real Gandalf vibe.
It looks like it's got a beard.
They do. That is the distinctive feature of the schnauzer, David. Moses is incredible. Kelly, you're welcome to send us pictures of Moses kayaking anytime. Musetti is signing his poster in the cupboard. There we go. Hello to our mascots, Phoebe, Maisie, and Roger. Hello to our top folks and executive producers, Greg, Chris, and Jeff. And Matt, if you're not too distracted, let's have some shout-outs. Oh, he's been handed the poster.
What he's always wanted.
He's doing quite a good job of looking quite pleased with that, isn't he? Off he goes with his poster. Matt, shout-outs.
We have Alec Mills from Bristol.
Hello, Alec.
All right, Alec. How you doing?
We don't have any more info, so you're gonna have to fill.
Alec.
Well, my granddad was an Alex, but lots of people called him Alec.
Okay. Yeah, I don't think we can have any Alex tennis players for an Alec, can we? Wouldn't really work.
What I don't know is whether all Alec plurals are Alexes or Alexanders. Is Alec a name in itself?
I believe it is.
Is it? What about Alec Baldwin?
Yes, he's an Alec.
But what was his name by birth? Talk amongst yourselves. I'm Googling it.
Doesn't Jo Dury support one of the Bristol teams?
She does.
Is she from Bristol?
I can't think of any other reason to support one of the Bristol teams.
How's this relevant?
He's born
because Alec's from Bristol.
Alec Baldwin is an Alexander.
Thank goodness I get it now. Yeah.
Is Jo Dury from Bristol?
Yes.
Yes.
Well, there we go. Is it Rovers or City that she supports?
City.
Great.
It is fabulously mysterious when people don't supply any information, but it also, when it's midnight, it does.
But we love you anyway, Alec.
Send us up shit creek without a paddle a bit.
Thanks for being a friend, though, Alec.
In a kayak with Moses. Thank you, Alec. You're very mysterious.
Next up, we have Peter from Victoria. Peter Carey.
All right, Peter.
Hello, Peter.
Like Peter Sampras.
That Greg was what Greg used to call him.
Greg called him Peter to his face. I've never seen anybody scowl quite like Pete Sampras did when that happened. And he didn't like it.
What do we know about Peter?
Peter says, since I live in the Pacific Northwest tennis wilderness, where the closest ATP WTA tournament is more than 2,000 kilometres away, I rarely see professional tennis. So I've been relying on your highly entertaining podcast to keep me up to date on all the important news for years.
Oh,
so that's a very nice message.
Thank you,
Peter's
Peter.
going to be hanging on news of Musetti in the cupboard. How else is he to get those important updates? Peter, thank you very much.
Cheers,
like Peter McNamara.
Yeah.
The late Peter McNamara. He was a good one. Thank you, Peter.
And finally, we have Kevin and Steph, who were at Roland Garros today. Kevin is in our newsletter predictions competition, and they would like to give a big thank you to Mike and Betty for supporting their tennis adventures. Kevin says, we're halfway to a career Grand Slam with Wimbledon and Paris after this incredible day on Longlen. We had an amazing day. A special thanks to those in the Roland Garros newsletter predictions contest for such a lively chat this week.
Oh.
Kevin Ulliet, a tennis player from, I think, South Africa, who is a doubles player back in my day at the ATP.
I remember that name. Wasn't expecting it to come up tonight, but
Me neither.
that is the beauty of shout-outs. Kevin and Steph, did you say, Matt?
Yes, I waved at them on Longlen today.
Oh, so they got the Zheng Samsonova match.
They did.
Oh,
and then
what
they
a
got
treat.
into Chatrier tonight.
Oh,
Would Steffi Graf or Stefan Edberg be helpful?
I was going to go Steph Dubois.
That's good.
These are all very good.
Yeah. And Betty Stover, if we're going to have a Betty.
Yep. And Mike Cole Russell.
Brian.
Brian. That's
Mike
better.
Bryan, very good.
Kevin, Steph, Mike, and Betty. Thank you all very much, and hello. Who was it that got the wave from? It was
Kevin and
Steph. Kevin and Steph.
Yeah.
Lucky you, Kevin and Steph.
Kevin's got the Wikipedia of Alec Baldwin up.
That's an adventure.
I was going to say.
Okay, folks. The Tennis Podcast is part of the Athletic Podcast Network, and that is excellent. And we're available wherever you get your podcasts. That includes YouTube. We will be back tomorrow, of course. Thank you for listening, and we'll speak to you then.